I review maybe 100 different SaaS packaging a year, and the number one mistake I see is the misuse of thresholds. So a threshold in a packaging context is this feature where you say, well, we have the basic and the advanced package, but the basic package you can only have 5 users. Like whenever you have more than 5, you have to buy the advanced, right? And then maybe you have an enterprise here, well, we'll say, well, whenever you go above 20 users in the advanced, you have to go enterprise. And you can have thresholds for all kinds. I recently did a redesign for I think 4 or 5 million euro ARR startup, and their packaging essentially was 10 different thresholds. So they had, it was something with users, and they had something with like gigabytes of storage, and they had something with like different model libraries and so forth. Like they had a bunch of them. Essentially, a threshold functions like a paywall, right? So I start to use a given solution, and I keep using it, I expand my uses, I adopt the software, and suddenly I hit a paywall. So it's just like I go to New York Times, I read an article, I read another, and then I hit a paywall because I've used up my 3 free articles or whatever their model is, right? So it's essentially the same thing, just with like engineered into your SaaS packaging. And the argument for thresholds, of course, is that, well, if people have more than 2 model libraries of 5 users or something like that, we want them to pay more. They are getting more value out of the software, so we're going to force upgrade them to the advanced thing, right? And sure, you can have a lot of these different metrics that correlate with the value, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best way to run these thresholds, right? So what I usually do is the following thought experiment. So I sit down, the client that I'm working with, I say, hey, you have 10 thresholds. Sure, and it's because each of them is correlated with the value, right? Right, okay. So first question, are these 10 different things that we measure, are they strongly correlated? So as users go up, do then the number of model libraries go up as well? And maybe the number of API calls that we're also using, do that go up as well? Are they strongly correlated, so you have a very linear correlation? And then if they say yes, then I say, sure, that great news. Then why are we using more than one, right? So if whatever you're measuring and say all of this is related to value, but it is strongly correlated, then we don't have to measure more than one of them. Then we just say, hey, we're just going to use users, and whenever you get above 5, we also know that you're very likely to have more than 2 model libraries and more than 1 million API calls or whatever it is, and then we can just force you through that one measurement instead of using 10. So it's just a more efficient model. Then the reverse, of course, is that they say, well, no, they're not correlated at all. Like users can go up here and model libraries can go totally like an independent variable over there. I say, okay, sure. So if that's the case, aren't we then using 10 different paywalls, and then the customer is going to hit one of them first by definition, right? Because they're going to move on all these different variables independently of each other, and then one of them is just bound to get hit first. And then we're asking the customer to say, hey, you are now using too much of this and we want you to pay more. However, the psychological reaction will be that the customer looks at what they're buying and say, hey, sure, I have 5 users and want to go to 6, but I only have 1 model library and I only have 100,000 API call and I only have whatever, less of the other 9. And now you want me to pay to raise all 10 thresholds. Because if you have 10 thresholds in basic package, likely you have the same 10 thresholds in the advanced, right? So now the customer feels that you're forcing them to buy and pay for 10 things when they actually only need 1. And the reaction to this is that the customer will keep their consumption back. They will not go to the 6th user. They will not go to the 3rd model library. They will not go to the 1,000,001 API call. They will try to contain their usage and then also contain their adoption, and hence also contain their value creation, and hence probably also contain your business, right? Because the more value your customer gets out of your product, the more you can actually charge for that product, right? So what happens usually with these multiple threshold models is that either they are simply inefficient because they're using more than one threshold, or they're using multiple thresholds, which is then blocking expansion to a massive degree. So reviewing packaging like this is one of the tells that I can see in packaging where I say, hey, I know nothing about your software. I might even not know what the solution does yet, but I can look just structurally from your packaging and the way you're using thresholds that we can optimize this. Because if you have more than 2 thresholds, like 2 thresholds or more, I know that we can either get rid of one of them, which is just going to make everything more efficient, like it's going to speed up your sales cycle a little, it's going to, help you out, or we can actually reduce some friction in your adoption cycle with your customers by, well, getting rid of at least one of them and maybe creating a smarter pricing model. Because the only reason you're using thresholds is because your pricing model isn't properly monetizing these customers. So maybe you should just say, hey, maximum of 5 users, and by the way, we're going to charge you per model library instance or whatever it is that we're going to do here. So you can turn some of the thresholds into pricing metrics and have a much more efficient scaling of the value price relationship with this account. So it's one of the nits I pick whenever I see models like this. It's usually put in place because I don't know what else to do, right? So it's like, I have this strong intuition that all these things are correlated with value, and I don't want to sort of get cheated, right? I don't want to over deliver to the market. So I think the intuition is wrong. Like, you should just over deliver to the market and figure out a smoother and better and more elegant way to price it, rather than try to box in your customers with all these paywalls, essentially through all these thresholds. So again, a threshold can be fine if you can't solve it elegantly. Multiple thresholds, probably not a good idea. Hey there, so I create these videos for free so that you can take your great SaaS product and turn it into a great SaaS business. So if you like the video and you got value from it, you should of course subscribe to the channel and also tell a friend. So write someone and say, hey, you're in SaaS, this guy talks about SaaS, maybe there's something in there for you. So that is the only way that this channel actually grows or these videos gets around. And this is sort of how I try to provide value to everyone. I have a network of clients that I have, and I get most of my business from referrals only. So the reason I make the videos and write the books and so forth is actually to just provide value to everyone else, because I can only be in one place at a time. So my hope with all these videos is just to do more good in the world. And if you tell a friend or you share, you can help me do that. So thank you.